guys, today's lesson is the first one in Unit 2. Unit 2 is going to be on adding and subtracting decimals. And so we're starting off today's lesson 3.1 from our book, and the lesson's going to be on decimals and place values. Yes, I realize we're not doing Chapter 2. We'll come back to that later on this year, but for now we're going to start with Chapter 3, Lesson 1, decimals and place values. Hopefully a good chunk of this will be a review with maybe a little bit of new information, but it's mainly to prep us for the rest of the unit. So let's start by figuring out what is a decimal. A decimal is simply a number that's written using base 10 place value system. And all that means is every place value is a multiple of 10, depending on what you have to the right or left. But anytime we use a whole number, that's technically a decimal. If we had the number 4, it's the same thing as saying 4.0. That would be the decimal part of it. But we might have 3.1 or 0.6725. Decimal just means anything using this decimal point that you see right here and between the whole numbers and the decimal parts. So we need to know what these place value names are. This is going to be really important because in your homework and in your quizzes, it's going to ask you to write out a number in words. We need to know how to take a number, take it from words and put it back into numbers. And we just need to know what these place values are. This right here in the middle, this is our decimal point. And this is the only time that we use the word and when we're talking about a number. This is the only place where and comes in. We get in a bad habit of saying $162. Well, that's not correct. The only time we get to say and is where we're talking about the decimal point. Now, everything to the left over here, all of these numbers are your whole number parts, and all of these numbers this way are your decimal parts. And you should be pretty familiar with these ones to the left. We have this very first place value would be the ones place. We have the tens place, the hundreds place value. We've got thousands, 10,000s, hundred thousands, and the last one we're going to talk about is the millions place value. But you should be pretty familiar with those. They kind of follow a pattern, with the exception of this first one, ones. Everything goes tens, hundreds, thousands. 10,000s, 100,000s, millions. 10 millions, 100 millions, trillions, and so on. They kind of follow a pattern. When we go the opposite, this is almost like a mirror reflection. This is the only problem. We don't have a decimal part for ones. So we skip right to the mirroring the tens, but all the decimals are going to end with THS. So this is the tenths place. And you have to get used to really pronouncing that. You almost feel like you're spitting as you talk, but that's what you need in order to get across that it's the decimal part, the difference between the tens and the tenths. So then this one follows that same pattern. This one's going to be the hundredths place value, and we have the thousandths and the 10,000ths and the 100,000ths and the millionths. So you can see It mirrors exactly what's on the whole number parts as with the decimal parts, with the exception that we have the ones as our first place value in the whole numbers, and we don't have that in the decimal part. If you look at our classroom when you get back to school, you'll see that I have the place values up around the room. When you look over by where the clock is, I've got the decimal point in the middle, and it goes the place values on either side of it. Let's keep going. One thing that you're going to have to do is take it from a number and put it into words. And so when we do this, this is where we need to plug in that word "and" in here in the right spot and only use it that one time. So if we're looking at this number right here, we have 108.7. Well, technically we would say that's 108 and 7/10. We only have one place value here to the right, and so that's the 10th place. So what we would do is we just write it as we would correctly say it, and so let's go ahead and look at that. 108 and 7/10. The next one gets a little bit busier. We've got our whole number part. If we were to cover up this section here, over here we have 72, so we're going to write out 72, and then we have our decimal point right here, and so that's where we put our "and" in, and then we look to the right here, and we ignore the whole number part. We got 015. How would we say that number? Well, we would say it was 15, and then we label it with whatever that last number's place value is. So this one we would write as 72 and 15, what's that place value? Thousandths. And you'll notice that we have the THS on here to show our place value. So 72 and 15 thousandths. And the last one, this one's really tricky. I want you to try and figure this one out. We start by looking at the whole number part. We've got 264. Notice it wasn't 264. We've got to leave that "and" out and only put it in for the decimal. 264 and, now how am I going to figure out this last part? Well, 0025, I would just say that's 25. And then what is my last place value? I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000. So that is exactly how that's going to go. 264 and 25 10,000ths. Good job. So now how would we turn it and go the other way? We've got some numbers written out in words, and we need to put them as decimals. So again, we need to separate that whole number part and the decimal part and go from there. We have 706 and 14 millions. So this is my whole number. This is my decimal part. And this is my decimal point. So I'm going to get my decimal point in there. 706. 706 and 14 millionths. That means I need to go to the millionths place value. I need to go tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millions. This is my last place value right here. So I'm going to make sure that 14 ends right there, and I need to fill in the zeros ahead of time. So let's try this last one, 16,000 and 145 10,000ths. Here's my decimal point, 16,000 and 145 10,000ths. I need to get that 10,000ths place. So I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. This is where I need to end. So I have 145, and I'm going to fill in that last one with a 0. That's it. I hope that this was a good refresher for you, and we'll see you tomorrow.